The system was built to profit from other people's misery. And from the beginning, it has been built that way. And I think the system does need to break. I think there needs to be a reckoning. Like, why are we living this way? Why is society and government and why is everything built the way that it is? And how can we do that different? I think you said it
Right.
last time where Gen Z is the ones kind of showing us that, hey, you don't have to sit at a desk for 40 hours a week
Hmm.
just to feed your kids. It's like you can work a little less or maybe work a little bit more efficiently. And they're kind of pushing back on the system, and the older generation is calling them lazy. And I think that's what you said last time, is like the older generation is calling them lazy, but it's like, no, we want to live. Like, we don't want to live to work,
Right.
or work to live. Like, we want to live. We want to, that's the whole reason we're here, is to
Right.
enjoy life, to enjoy this planet. Like, why do we have to work?
It's like this idea because it's this cycle. It's this idea that like,
Hmm.
well, I did it, so you have to. It's like it's
Yes.
people who get upset because jobs like especially in software engineering when boot camps became a really big thing and they were high-end junior developers who went to boot camps instead
Hmm.
of people who had degrees. And it was like people with degrees were upset. I was like, oh well, if I had to get a degree, you should have to get a degree. And it's like, why though?
No,
Like
why?
if we continue into the future, we don't. It's like, oh well, when I was growing up, it was only man and woman. And it's like, okay, but why can't it just be like if I want to be a non-binary person, why can't I do that? Like the rules don't have to stay the same forever. That's how progress gets, stale. And I do think, unfortunately, it's going to take a battle of a long time, and unfortunately, probably till we're much older for this to sort of become, our mentality of like we need to be using this for good to become the general norm.
Hmm.
Um, and it is unfortunate because it's going to take, I hate, I say this cautiously. I hate that we are now living longer because the problem with that
It's
is
a blessing and a
older
curse.
generation,
Yeah.
yeah, older generations get to stay in power for a lot longer. It forces a younger generation to have to wait for them to pass. And by that point, we're reaching sort of these margins of like, by the time I'm 40 and they're at 90, okay, they pass away, but now I'm 40. Now the next generation 20 years earlier from me has to do what I couldn't have done for 20 years. And it's just like, man, the only way this is going to change is if the people with the good hearts, with the bleeding hearts, fight against the system. And I think it's the example of that is Mandani here in New York City.
Mm.
He froze the rent. I think if it was for just rent stabilized apartments, but he froze the rent in New York City, and landlords are livid because they're like, "What do you mean I can't increase rent?" It's like because
Yeah.
you have 100 apartment buildings all over the New York City. You make $3.6 million a year, and your property taxes are about 80 grand. You're fine, but they don't care. Because
Yeah.
one
It's the
landlord was
greed.
like, yeah, one landlord was like, my success shouldn't mean like, well, I like, and it's like, so you don't care if people can afford to live. It's like, no, I want to I want what did he say? He wanted a Maserati or something like that. He's like, but I can afford a Mercedes. So you don't get to get the Maserati just because you can't afford it. It's like, so if they can't live in Manhattan, where are they going to live? I don't know, like Bronx or, so it's like pushing them away.
So
And I
he
was like,
doesn't
this is,
care. Yeah. The
no, it's a
lack of.
mentality. Like it's crazy. And he thinks, and this is the psychosis of people. It's like he thinks that if because he's successful, that there must be other people as or more successful than him who want to live in a one bedroom, 300 square foot apartment for $2,500 a month. And it's like you're delusional because the problem that you're having is that you're not understanding that people without money can only afford certain things, and the people with money are a small portion of people. So if you're trying to make the whole Manhattan unaffordable for the majority of people, you're going to have a hard time renting out your 100 buildings because no one can afford to live there unless you get desperate people who are two, three, four people in a one bedroom apartment just to be able to afford rent in Manhattan. That's crazy to me.